Hello and welcome. I'm Roger Worthington and I'm going to talk to you today about planning for a sustainable future. So let me tell you a little bit about myself. I'm an independent consultant specializing in ethics and global health, and increasingly I'm involved in sustainable development. And in that capacity, I co-chair a group of fellows called the SDG Publishers Compact Fellows. And we're a group of about 28 at the moment, and we're mostly spread between the United States and the United Kingdom, but we have representatives from other countries around the world. And we're looking at how academic research on sustainable development is published and how it is or isn't accessible to the wider public. So we collaborate with various other organizations. I'm also editor-in-chief of the journal which is run by Scholar Launch called Scholarly Review. You may be familiar with this. If not, you might want to check it out and maybe even submit some of your work. I speak regularly at UN events. I do this remotely, and some of these are co-sponsored by the World Health Organization. And some of those are available on YouTube. And I also run training and education programs for doctors in the British Health Service, the NHS. So that's, oh yes, and finally, for a number of years, I was adjunct faculty at Yale School of Medicine. So I've had academic appointments in various countries, the United Kingdom, the United States, and Australia, as well as consultancy roles around the world. So anyway, enough about me. So sustainable development. Let's talk about SDG research and perhaps what this means for education. And I particularly want to talk about, given the nature of this event today, I want to talk about leadership skills in promoting sustainability. So let me introduce you to the goals themselves. So there are 17 of them altogether, and you will see from the titles that they're very broad. And some of them are quite difficult to achieve. But an effort was made back in 2015 to try and push the world towards fairer and more just institutions, partly for social reasons and also to try and help address problems with the natural environment, including climate change. Now, I'm particularly interested in some of these. So 3, for instance, is about health and well-being. I'm an educator, so I'm interested in 4. 5 is about gender equality, and I speak regularly about that. And to some extent 10 as well. 13 is the one that deals with climate change. And 17 is about partnerships and collaborations. And so that's quite a big part of what I do. So those are the goals, and check them out for yourself. And if you click on any one of these links, you'll easily find it on the UN website, then you can find out more what these goals are meant to achieve, because they're quite detailed if you break them down. So let's talk a little bit more about this group that I helped to run. The SDG Publishers Compact runs this fellows program. A lot of academic publishers, most academic publishers, are signatories to this SDG Compact, which is a commitment basically to try and make their businesses more sustainable and to promote research on sustainable development and to make it accessible. And that actually is quite a task when you put it all together. Now, there is a recording, a very short 2-minute video, which is available on YouTube. I'm not going to run it now because I don't think this link will work while I'm in the middle of the presentation. But if you have a look at this later, I think you'll be sent the slides. You should be able to access it from there. And the what we call HESI, the Higher Education Sustainability Initiative, is the UN agency that coordinates all this. We have our own website, sdgcompactfellows.org, and you're welcome to check that out. And we promote events, we publish guidance in the form of top action tips mostly. And these are aimed at very particular groups of people. It may be authors and researchers, it may be aimed at publishers, even librarians and universities. And we have specific advice and guidance on practical steps that can be taken to help promote sustainable development. So you're welcome to check that out. It's publicly available. And so these are just a few of the projects that we're working on at the moment. I mentioned education earlier on, and there's a big international push led by UNESCO, another UN agency, to try and make higher education itself more sustainable. In other words, universities need to be sustainable institutions. And actually, if you stop and think about it, they have an enormous carbon footprint. They have a lot of physical infrastructure. If you go to any university campus and it takes up acres and acres of space, all these buildings need to be heated or air conditioned and so forth. And then students fly in and out, so there's a lot of air travel, and academics like myself certainly have been responsible for doing a lot of flying. I mean, I've been all over the world giving presentations at conferences and medical schools. So there's a push to make the whole higher education agenda more sustainable. I've already mentioned the second bullet point about producing guidance. And we're working with academic publishers to try and make the whole publishing industry more equitable as well as sustainable. Actually, equity, which is the synonym for that would be fairness, is the underlying philosophy behind all the SDGs. And we actually produce some guidance on equity, which you might find interesting. And we include issues like gender balance and also research recognition for researchers who are in low to middle income countries. A lot of global health research, for instance, is initiated by large universities, mostly in the West, sometimes in collaboration with institutions in what is often referred to as the global South. But academics and institutions in these parts of the world don't always get the recognition. It's not a level playing field, and it can be very difficult for them to get their work recognized, to get grants, and sometimes even just to access the academic publications themselves. So there are lots of barriers, some of which, of course, is about language. Anyway, I won't go into any more detail on that at the moment. I've already mentioned about speaking at events, and as a team, a number of us, speak regularly at conferences, whether it's academic conferences or publishing conferences. For instance, I spoke at the London Book Fair on sustainability in April last year. I'll probably be doing the same next year. And we're working with institutions, publishers mainly, but other organizations to help promote open science. Because there's a feeling, there's a lot of distrust amongst the general public about science, and part of it, I think, is because scientific findings are not generally accessible. They're often hidden behind paywalls. They're in journals that are only normally read by other academics, and they're in a language that can be very hard to understand. So we're trying to work with academic publishers to encourage them to promote summaries in plain English, plain language summaries, or any other language for that matter. So that's enough about the work that we're doing. So these are just examples. And one other thing which I'm personally involved with, I've got a research group which has members on 3 continents, one in the Middle East, myself in the United Kingdom, and 3 members in the United States. And we're currently investigating links between climate, migration, and health. And I'm giving you this as just a practical example of the sort of research that can be done around sustainability. So we're taking these 3 things, climate, migration, and health, and looking at them together. They tend to be researched on their own, but we think the interactions between these 3 is really important. And nobody is very much is writing about it. So we're trying to bring together SDG 3, 4, 5, 6, and 13, which, as you see there, is about health and well-being, education, gender equality, water and sanitation, that's number 6, and action to combat climate change. And we think it's important to discuss these things as an integrated whole in order to facilitate change and to recognize the interactions. And work that we're doing, we've already been sharing it. We ran a workshop at the World Congress on Public Health last year, which was held in Rome. And we've just been asked to give a plenary talk at a global health conference, which is coming up in November. And at these events, we talk about international law, human rights, as well as climate, migration, and health. So that's just some of the stuff that I'm involved with. And we're writing up our research with a view to publication in a few months' time. So what about you? What can you do to help promote sustainability? So here are a couple of suggestions. I mean, obviously, you could think about modifying your lifestyle, but it's not my job to tell you what to do or how to lead your life. So, but I can encourage you to do research on SDGs. So to that end, I run courses throughout the year through Scholar Launch for high school students on sustainable development. So you can check these out if you're interested. And last year, I worked with Scholar Launch to set up a new scholarship for SDG research, specifically to encourage youth leadership in sustainability. And so we ran an open competition, and the winner of that prize, first prize, was a young lady called Swara Joshi, who's from California. And she's been working with me all summer and is just finishing a project, and her topic is quite interesting. She's researching ultra-processed foods and their impact on human health and the environment. And so that, of course, includes climate. And it's been quite surprising in a way for both of us, because this phrase ultra-processed foods you may not have come across, but it actually includes a lot of things that might well be part of your diet. It's stuff basically that's made in factories and that may include substances that are not natural foods at all. And they can be very damaging to human health, lead to disease burden, particularly later in life. But they also have an impact on the environment because of waste and carbon footprint and so forth. So it's quite a big topic. Anyway, we're repeating this exercise in 2024. So keep your eyes open because there will be an announcement in January, and any of you are welcome to apply. The criteria for and requirements will all be publicly accessible. So what about, what can you do? One of the things you can do is to use your leadership skills to help raise awareness of the importance of sustainable development. And you can do that with your own community, in your school, with your social groups, through social media, and through participation in events or initiatives that are happening perhaps in your area. Just talking about climate, for instance, it's not enough to say, okay, well, this I'm not interested in this. Somebody else can worry about this. But climate affects absolutely everybody. I mean, just look what's happened in 2023, the number of natural disasters that have happened on an incredible scale, like wildfires. I don't think there's ever been a year when there have been so many wildfires burning around the world. And then just in the last 2 weeks, we've had earthquakes and major floods in North Africa, which have claimed many thousands of lives. So this is not something to be dealt with in the future. It really needs addressing now. And global leaders need to take action. But leadership can take many forms, and I think youth leadership has a crucial role to play. I have to say that my age group, my generation, has not necessarily been doing a very good job of this in the past. And so, you have a responsibility here. It's also an opportunity to get involved. And so I close with this slide to say congratulations and thank you for what you may have already done in terms of promoting sustainability within your community. And please think about some of these things. And so I congratulate you also for what you're going to do next. Thank you very much for listening.